Whenever you're ready, Gigi.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And this meeting is being recorded. So aloha, everyone, and good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is the Department of Hawaiian Homelands Grants Information Meeting. And I think I know everybody. um, I'm the grant specialist with the department, and Cedric Dort is with us also, helping me on the technical side here with the Zoom meeting. So we are going to be recording this meeting, and will be posted on the department's website. This presentation will be repeated on November 1 at 6 p.m. and again on November 3 at 11 a.m. Next slide. I think everybody kind of knows how to participate. We've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings lately. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, next slide again. Meeting Kuleana. I know you folks probably have seen this before. So we just want to be respectful during the meeting. Uh, use the chat box at any time. Raise your hand. Wait for the facilitator call on you. If for some reason we don't get to your question, you may also email us at the dhl.planning@hawaii.gov. Next slide. So there are two solicitation notices or requests for proposal. We are offering the grant, capacity building grant and the regional plan grant. There are two places you can download the full grant applications: on the DHHL website or on the State Procurement Office HANDS website. And the web addresses are here below. Next slide. So these are the department's trust grants. The source of funds is the Native Hawaiian Rehabilitation Fund. Beneficiaries of the proposed assistance or project must be Native Hawaiians as defined by the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. Because these are NERF funds, you may also use these funds for matching funds for any federal or state grants. But always check your funders' requirements on the specifics regarding matching funds. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, okay. So, oh, no, sorry, go back. Capacity building grant. Why is the department doing this? The capacity building grant is to assist homestead communities, applicants, and their supporting organizations to enhance and strengthen organizational capacity to plan and implement projects. Generally, capacity areas are in governance, so things like board training, leadership development, financing or bookkeeping, your accounting systems, administrative systems, uh, looking looking at developing new services or products, marketing and community outreach. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I changed all those titles. So this is the capacity building grant. We don't have this COVID grant anymore. So for capacity building, who is eligible? Nonprofit, 501c3s, or if you are not a 501c3, you may use a fiscal sponsor. Oftentimes I get questions about what's a fiscal sponsor. So I just put this list together of what to look for in a sponsor. So a fiscal sponsor, is providing a service that you need. They have good communications with you and a good working relationship. Hopefully, they've worked with you before and you've had a good experience with them before. Uh, they also would actively mentor you because if they're going to be the sponsor for the grant, they should be helping you with what that means, and also training you on how to do this on your own later on. Definitely have a written agreement with your sponsor. Oftentimes, I see a lot of kind of loose partnerships, and then when it gets down to who's supposed to do what, you get a lot of, well, I thought you were doing it. No, I thought you were doing it. So definitely have a written agreement on what you're going to do as the project group and what your sponsor is going to do. Fiscal sponsors should have this as their regular line of business and have a good track record. You want to look for that. And they also have the capacity to take you on as a client. Sometimes I see fiscal sponsors, they take on more than they can handle. So you want to check that out as well, that they're not so overly busy that they may not be able to help you out. So those are just a few things. I just kind of wanted to list out if you need to look for a sponsor. Next slide. If you are a current grantee, just please make sure you've submitted in your reports. Double check your Hawaii Compliance Express. Make sure that's in compliance. Um, so anything that's out of compliance, uh, you're not going to be eligible. So there's still time. Applications are due December 15. So there's still time to submit whatever reports, and also to check out your Hawaii Compliance Express. Next slide. So the capacity building grant, again, it's to build organizational capacity to support beneficiaries to plan and implement their projects. We have budgeted $100,000 total available statewide. The maximum award per organization is $5,000. That's the maximum. So if you do the math, we're looking at roughly about what is that, 20 awards total. And just a little factoid, last time we actually had a larger budget and not too many people applied. so, so we reduced the budget on this particular grant. So I'm hoping, there'll be, plenty of applications, to fully award the funds. Next slide. Uh, so this is a sample list of types of projects we've seen for this particular grant. And this is just a sample. Please, if you have, other ideas or other needs, check it out and see if it would qualify for this grant. So typical board training, strategic planning, community visioning, outreach, uh, grant writing, putting together a fund development plan, obtaining your 501c3, because that's a big application. And we've had a couple of associations apply for building capacity within their own homestead or with applicants. So it's this train the trainer concept. For example, we had one association, they're a farming agriculture association, and they had equipment operators. So they kind of trained each other, and they rented some equipment to help clear some land area. But that would be like a train the trainer, where within your own community or your group of applicants, if there's a skill or information that they have to offer. You could use, this one. It would be considered, training the trainer, um, to spread that knowledge and skill among your community. Um, that to me is kind of the ultimate capacity building within a homestead where you're teaching each other. So any ideas or projects on that, that would be eligible for this grant. Next slide. So the when and where. So grant applications are due on December 15. Uh, it needs to be submitted to our couple A office. This is not a postmark date. It needs to be in our office by the 15th. No applications are accepted by email, nor fax, nor submitted to any district office. And keep in mind with this December date, it is the holidays. So just, make sure, I encourage everyone to send in their application early so it doesn't get stuck or caught up in the holiday mail rush. Um, Next slide. This is the overall schedule from application. We're doing these grant informational meetings. Due date is December 15. The department will conduct the reviews in December. We are anticipating going to commission at the January meeting for commission to make its decisions and awards. And then in February and March, notifications will be sent back to all applicants, and we will begin the contracting process with awardees. Contracts usually take a couple of months, and the estimated grant start date would be in May or June. That's the overall schedule for now. If it changes, we will post any changes to the website. Next slide. Oh, so any questions at this point on the capacity building grant? I don't think. Okay. So let's move on to the regional planning grant. Next slide. So the regional plan priority project grant, why is the department doing this? This is to assist beneficiaries to implement priority projects that are identified in the most recently approved regional plan, and also to help you folks leverage resources with other federal or state funds or private funds. Next slide. Same thing, who is eligible? Any nonprofit with a 501c3 designation or a fiscal sponsor. Next slide. So same requirement, if you're a current grantee, anything out of compliance, please try and take care of those things. Otherwise, we won't be able to accept your new grant application. Next slide. So again, this particular grant is to support beneficiaries to implement priority projects. We have budgeted $900,000 available statewide. You may apply for a maximum of $100,000 per organization. Typical grant period is between 2 to 4 years. We do have some regional plan grants right now going longer than that. So it is flexible. The timeline is flexible. If we get 9 applications, each asking the maximum, then we would end up awarding only 9 9 grants. So it's really going to depend on, what we receive in applications and what each application is asking. But roughly, the entire budget is 900,000. Also, what we've done in the past is on the capacity building grant, if we don't use up that budget and there's more need in regional plan, we'll move it there to give us a little bit more extra money to make awards. Next slide. What are the eligible projects? Again, only those projects that are identified as a priority project. In the request for proposal packet, at the very back, the last 5 pages is Exhibit A, and that is the complete list of eligible projects. You're going to need to cite the page number out of the regional plan so that we can be clear as to which project you're applying for. And again, if you want the full copy of the individual regional plan, those also are posted on the website. The reason I bring this up is we've had some confusion in prior rounds where people were picking projects off of the potential project list. So that's not what we're looking for. It's only what's identified as priority project. And so we included this list called Exhibit A to try and make it more clear as to what projects are eligible. Next slide. So same as the capacity building grant, applications are due December 15. Must be received before or on December 15 at the Kapolei office. No email, no fax, nor sending the application to a district office. None of those will be accepted. Next slide. Same schedule as the capacity building grant. We're doing these informational meetings, which are optional. Deadline is December 15. The department's review is expected in December. We anticipate going to commission in January for grant awards. And then February, March, notifications to all applicants, and we begin the contracting process with those awarded and estimating start dates of May or June. Next slide. Any questions at this point on the regional plan priority project grant? Okay, I think we have one or two last slides. So for both applications, the application really hasn't changed much. So it consists of 4 parts. The part 1 is the cover sheet itself. Part 2 is the proposal request. So that's your scope, budget, and timeline. I do want to emphasize, that is really where you want to spend most of your time. And particularly make sure that your scope and your budget are all saying the same thing. What I mean by that is, oftentimes reviewers will read the scope and the budget doesn't quite match up to what's being said in the scope. So, one of the things I often suggest to people is, have someone else read through your draft from page 1 to the end, just to make sure everything aligns with each other. Double check your budget, that it all matches up. There is a table in the application, so make sure everything adds up, all the columns and all the rows. Make sure your timeline is reasonable. We do see a lot of very large scopes and a short timeline. So that kind of makes us, kind of makes us relook at the application. So you want to make sure the scope, budget, and timeline are all reasonable. Part three is where the required forms are and any attachments that you would like to add. Required forms, there are some sample forms and they're labeled as sample. When it says sample, what we're looking for is that you take those forms and put it on your own letterhead and adjust it to your organization. So because sometimes we'll get sample forms signed by the applicant just as it is. So that's not a good thing. You want to use the samples as samples and make it your own. Uh, the other thing I do want to also point out, if you have partners in your application, make sure you have some kind of letter or a statement that they are supporting your project and they're aware of what their role is. Um, we've had a couple glitches in the past, so we want to make sure that your proposal clearly identifies who your partners are and that there be some kind of letter from that partner or a statement from the partner that they are aware they're in this project and what they're being expected or being asked to do. And then part four is really just, anything else you want to add, any news articles, photos, brochures, newsletters, anything that will help support your proposal and give our reviewers, a better idea of, who your organization is, the kinds of things you are currently working on, any, highlights or past accomplishments that you would like to mention. And then the last page of the packet is a checklist. That's just a handy, convenient list. So after you finish preparing your proposal, you can double check it against that checklist, make sure you have all the items that is being asked. And I think, is that it?
I have a
Next
question.
slide. Oh, question.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So my question was, so let's say Paupena, right, wanted to either Paupena or let's say HCDC, right, is going out for these capacity grants, right, and they become, like a project partner, for instance, and would like a simple MOU suffice, or you're going to need all their taxing and documentation included in the submission of this capacity building grant?
So if they're a partner and have, a role in the project, or wait a minute, let me back up. Is Paupena and or HCDC, are they acting as a fiscal sponsor? Or,
Yes. So
okay,
I guess that
yeah.
should have been my question is there a difference between being a fiscal sponsor or, you know, um, versus a project partner?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so a fiscal sponsor, you only need one. If
Okay.
you are not a 501c3 yourself, then you would need to get a fiscal sponsor.
Hmm.
But that's only one. You only need one entity to serve as the fiscal sponsor, because the fiscal sponsor will be the name on the actual contract.
Okay.
So that's a fiscal sponsor.
Correct.
Um, a project partner is, let me see if I can give an example. Um, Say there's a some kind of farming project
Mhm.
And there's 3 associations. Oh, here's a good example. Um, there's a nonprofit based in Waimanalo. Uh, they are doing they're helping other homesteads on other islands
Mhm.
um,
With the
implement aquaponics.
yeah, the aquaponics. Okay.
So the Waimanalo nonprofit is the applicant. They
Mhm.
are the 501c3, um, and they listed 2 other organizations as partners,
Mhm.
and uh, those 2 are homestead associations that are going to receive the aquaponics training and help their own homesteaders on their island, build their aquaponics system.
Mhm.
So that's a project partner where they're actively implementing the project, along with whoever the applicant is. And so in that circumstance, we would need, uh, a simple acknowledgement, from those 2 partners that, they are in support of this project. Their role is XYZ. Just a little description of what their role is. So that's all that's needed. It could also even be a simple email, saying, "Dear Waimanalo organization, we like this project. We want to, we're going to partner with you guys, um, to help us build our uh, individual aquaponics for our homesteaders."
Okay.
It could be as simple as that. Really depends on, what your relationship as the applicant, what your organization's relationship is going to be with those partners. If you want something more formal,
Mhm.
that's up to you. All the department needs is that there was some acknowledgement by the partner
Mhm.
that they are participating and they're aware that they're part of this application.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And then so let's say, for example, and forgive me if I'm asking a redundant question, but as a fiscal sponsor, can, like, for instance, in this case, HCDC and Paupena be fiscal sponsors for multiple associations? So what I'm saying is,
Yes.
yeah, they can.
We've had fiscal sponsors. So a good example is the capacity building. Sometimes, 2 or 3 associations on the same island, or even not in the same island, they're all asking for board training,
Hmm.
and um, they've been, 3 associations are working together on other stuff,
Hmm.
and their common project is board training.
Hmm.
So one of them would serve as the sponsor, and so they would apply for each of them on their behalf.
Hmm.
So one year we had one association apply each for 5,000. So the total application came in as 15,000. And then that way they got, the advantage of economies of scale. They hired one trainer, to help all 3 of them. Um, that's one way to do it.
Okay.
Um, the only thing I would be careful about, I think I said that earlier in the earlier slide regarding sponsors. Just make sure whoever the sponsor is has the capacity to handle multiple agreements and associations.
Yeah.
The capacity building grant, not too bad because it's smaller and the tasks are kind of straightforward. But when you get into the larger ones, like, the regional plan grants,
Mhm.
that's going to be kind of challenging, unless you're a really large fiscal
Mhm.
sponsor, and or definitely show your track record that you can handle multiple and large
Mhm.
dollar amounts.
Right.
I would definitely put that in your qualifications.
Mhm.
That would help. the reviewers better understand your capacity as a sponsor to handle multiple uh, groups and large amounts of funding.
Got it. Yeah, most definitely. I know HCDC's, their portfolio is pretty broad. Paupena is just flexing theirs now. So, um, yeah, I think that they would probably remain small. But
Yeah.
NTK Call was just asking because I think there's a Waihu Call 3 that's looking to do some sort of partnership work to capacity build for their OPO group. So I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, you folks can propose almost anything, but again, it's going to come down to that part two of the
Mhm.
application, the scope, budget, and timeline. You know, it is a proposal. We usually have a committee of three reviewers
Mhm.
who may or may not know who you are,
Mhm.
nor or may not know or be familiar with the project.
Mhm.
So it's upon you as the applicant, to tell that story and include enough information in the application, um, you know, to best describe your project, who your partners are.
Mhm.
Do you have the capacity and the track record, to successfully implement it?
Successfully implement it.
Because we've also had groups in the past who came in with a multiple association application
Mhm.
and did not quite have strong relationships, working relationships. And I actually had one of those collaborations come back after it was awarded, asking if one of the associations can uh, take their money and uh, be awarded separately.
Right.
Unfortunately, the commission had already approved the partnership, the collaboration, and it was in contracting stage. So we could not disassociate one partner out of the group. So like I said, in the fit sponsorship kinds of situations, just be clear in your application and show how strong your partnership is, uh, so that we don't run into any issues after it gets awarded.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
but that's happened a couple of times where the partnership looked pretty good, and then unfortunately, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
things change.
And I think
And
I
yeah.
can speak even with NT, um, with Cora, I think on Maui and between Maui and Molokai, we've built a pretty good standing and, in terms of really building capacity from within the leadership of the the Homestead Association that, we're comfortable at this point, with putting out, various different grant hui meetings easily
Oh,
over the phone.
good.
So we pretty much like are building those projects from within. And so, yeah, when you kind of like, we're currently going through one with Pa'opena right now with OHA, and it's, I've never been through a grant process like this where I think we're on revision number 4. But it's really good. Even OHA's never been in this position to where they actually really sit and walk through the process. And so we've actually had 4 revisions, 2 hours, but in a positive way, because the grant just kind of took on the scope of work, became a lot more. We were able to drill down on a lot of the ideas. So once you go through an OHA process like that, these are kind of simple. You guys don't ask for too much. But
Good.
yeah,
Good. Good
we
to
had
hear that.
that helped us, and we have our homestead associations that are actually already garnered like the 25,000 MEO grant. Um, they've gotten a couple in HCDC, like Kahiki Nui has got through HCDC, And so it's just really kind of giving them the ideas of really building what a project could look like on their homestead, and how to, one, write it up, two, how to envision it, and how to bring those stakeholders to the table. So we're really confident in the way that our particular homesteads who participate with Paupena are able to go for the grant. The problem and the issue would be more 501 status. So that's why my question about, bringing around HCDC and Paupena. So Paupena just won an OED grant of 58,000. We're right now in the process of doing an additional 48,000 with OHA. And then we're currently now writing for the HTA grant for 100,000.
Great.
So
Yeah, not everybody chooses to be a 501c3. Yeah, and then it fiscal sponsors play a really good role. Again, it's back to having a good, strong working relationship.
Absolutely.
And not everybody needs to be a 501c3. I find a lot of groups, they're happy with, with their structure.
Absolutely.
And they actually don't want to be a 501c3 because they want to put up with all the humbug and headache, right? All the administrative stuff that comes with it. They just want to focus on the project. And so it works for them. So it really just depends on every organization and what works for you. So that's good. Yeah, there's many out there, many organizations like Paupena and HCDC, who are serving in that fiscal sponsor role. And I also see homestead associations themselves who are 501c3, helping some of the others who are not. We see that too.
And that's
so again, it goes back to, whatever works.
And how to build capacity inside of that. So thank you for answering those questions.
Sure. Any other questions? So again, the due date is December 15th. Applications, we're still old school at DHHL. We haven't gone to electronic submittal. So it does need to be in our office in Kapolei by the 15th. And just keep in mind, this is like holiday mail time. So give yourselves plenty of time to get it in our office. Our folks in our receiving end, they know they're supposed to date and timestamp it. So it's real clear when the application was received. Anything coming after will be automatically returned. Any incomplete applications also will automatically be returned. So use the checklist in the packet just to double check that all your items are in there. The full packet and the forms are on the DHHL website. If you have any questions, after this informational meeting, you can send them to the dhhl.planning@hawaii.gov email address. I think that's about it. We are repeating this presentation on Monday, same time at 6 p.m. And we are also doing a daytime meeting on Wednesday at 11. In case people can't make an evening meeting.